In 1963, a Turkish man grabbed a sledgehammer to knock down a simple basement wall, only to feel a cold, stale wind blowing from a pitch-black abyss that shouldn't exist. He stepped through the rubble and vanished into an impossibly massive subterranean world built to completely hide 20,000 people from an unknown terror above. The most unsettling reality is that the ground you walk on every single day is a thin ceiling covering forgotten fortunes, ancient warships, and perfectly preserved bodies floating in dark fluid. Join us and let's discover unexpected discoveries found while digging underground. Let's go.
Number 13. Toland Man. Cutting peat from a desolate Danish bog in the spring of 1950, two local brothers suddenly struck what they believed was a fresh murder victim. The body resting in the dark, wet earth was so horrifyingly pristine that the men completely abandoned their digging tools and immediately contacted the local police. When investigators arrived at the dreary swamp, they found a man curled into a fetal position, wearing only a pointed leather cap and a heavy hide belt. Most chilling of all was the thick, braided animal skin noose pulled tightly around his neck, indicating a brutal execution. The authorities quickly realized this was not a modern crime scene when researchers completely extracted the body and dated the remains to the 4th century BC. The deep, oxygen-free bog water was heavily saturated with naturally acidic compounds that acted exactly like a massive chemical pickling jar. This completely halted the natural decay process, preserving the texture of his skin, his internal organs, and even the light stubble on his chin. Looking directly at his perfectly intact facial features is intensely unsettling because he looks absolutely alive, simply taking a nap in the mud. He was likely a human sacrifice offered to ancient swamp gods, forcefully drowned in the freezing water to appease invisible forces. The sheer level of preservation turns this ancient execution into an intimate, horrifying encounter, raising deep questions about what other bodies are still floating perfectly suspended beneath the thick moss.
Number 12. Chincana. Slipping through a narrow, easily overlooked opening beneath the ancient stone fortress of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, explorers enter a deadly, unmapped labyrinth of pitch-black tunnels that swallows all sound. Known as the Chincanas, this massive underground network was carved directly into the bedrock by the Inca civilization centuries before the Spanish conquest to serve as a secret transit system and royal treasury. The sheer scale of the geometric corridors defy modern understanding, winding deep beneath the city of Cusco and stretching for miles into completely uncharted abysses. The most terrifying aspect of the Chincana is its flawless design as an inescapable trap for intruders, featuring endless false turns, sudden vertical drop-offs, and complete sensory deprivation. In the mid-20th century, a group of well-equipped academic explorers vanished entirely without leaving a single trace into the cavern after seeking the lost gold of the Inca Empire, triggering a massive military search operation. Weeks later, only 2 starving survivors emerged from a tiny hole miles away, clutching a single solid corn cob found in the deep before forever losing their minds to absolute madness. The government was forced to aggressively seal the primary entrances with heavy iron grates and solid concrete to permanently stop citizens from wandering into the lethal darkness. The chilling realization that an entire empire built a second silent city of shadows beneath the Andes Mountains permanently haunts modern researchers who know that countless skeletons are still resting alongside lost treasures in dark spaces that human light will never reach again.
Only 1% of people know the dark truth behind what we are about to show you next. If you want to be part of the few who actually know what's happening in the world, subscribe and leave a like right now. Done? Look at this. Number 11. Saddle Ridge Horde. Walking their dog on their property, a quiet, ordinary California couple noticed a rusted metal edge protruding from the dirt near the base of a massive old tree. Prying the heavy lid off the decaying canister, revealed hundreds of perfect, gleaming gold coins, untouched by the elements. Returning to the exact spot with a standard metal detector, they systematically dug up 7 more cans buried in the immediate vicinity. Inside the dirt-caked containers were 1,427 pure gold coins, dating from 1847 to 1894, an absolute fortune completely hidden from the world. Evaluators appraised the massive collection, now known as the Saddle Ridge Hoard, at a staggering $10 million. The face value of the coins was only around $27,000, but their pristine, uncirculated condition skyrocketed their worth to collectors. One single coin in the batch, an 1866 double eagle lacking the standard motto, was valued at over $1 million alone. Investigators and historians spent months trying to trace the origin of the buried fortune, scouring records of old bank heists and stagecoach robberies, but the true owner remains a total ghost. The prevailing theory suggests a deeply paranoid individual who completely lost faith in the banking system, simply shoved their entire paperless life savings into the ground. That anonymous person died without ever reclaiming their buried vault, leaving a literal gold mine sitting deep inches beneath the grass, while generations of people walked directly over the fortune without ever looking down.
Number 10. Xi'an dinosaur eggs. Road crews in China tearing up a damaged street to fix a broken sewage pipe hit a dense cluster of perfectly round, rock-hard spheres. Beneath the cracked asphalt of Xi'an in 2015, workers uncovered a staggering 43 fossilized dinosaur eggs stacked neatly together. 19 of these ancient spheres were entirely intact, having somehow survived millions of years of geological pressure and decades of heavy modern traffic driving directly over them. The city is positioned in Shaanxi province, an area recognized by paleontologists as a massive ancient breeding ground. Millions of years ago, the environment provided the exact temperature and soil conditions necessary for massive prehistoric reptiles to safely bury their offspring. The fossilization process occurs when minerals from the surrounding Earth slowly replace the organic material of the eggshell over countless millennia, turning fragile organic matter into solid stone. Each egg was roughly the size of an ostrich egg, demanding extreme care from the excavation team, who had to chisel the surrounding bedrock away by hand. Commuters had been unknowingly driving their cars and large heavy trucks over an ancient prehistoric nursery for years, completely oblivious to the ancient family resting in the dirt. Extracting the fossils required halting city infrastructure and carefully isolating the fragile stone from nearby construction vibrations, forcing modern society to yield completely to creatures that ruled the earth long before humanity even existed.
Number 9. Temple of Mithras. Developers excavating the muddy banks of the Walbrook River in London slammed straight into heavy Roman masonry. Deep beneath the modern pavement, they exposed an entirely intact subterranean temple dedicated to the god Mithras, built around 240 years after Christ. The Mithraic mysteries operated as a secretive, all-male cult popular among elite Roman legions. Their rituals required windowless, underground spaces designed to perfectly mimic the dark, enclosed cave where their god famously slaughtered a divine bull. The waterlogged soil of the riverbank acted as a preservative, keeping delicate artifacts safe from the destructive fires that ravaged London over the centuries. Sifting through the ancient mud, archaeologists extracted hundreds of pristine items, including intricate tin amulets, sacrificial animal bones, and incredibly rare wooden writing tablets. These wooden boards contain some of the absolute oldest handwritten financial documents ever discovered in the entire country, including a contract dealing with a massive dispute over a loan. The developers were forced to dramatically alter their billion-dollar architectural plans to accommodate the ancient ruins, carefully shifting the entire structural load of their modern skyscraper. the ancient sanctuary was painstakingly restored and embedded directly into the base of the modern building, meaning stockbrokers now commute to work by walking through the exact corridors where soldiers once performed blood sacrifices in total darkness.
Surveying an ordinary municipal parking lot in Leicester, researchers fired ground-penetrating radar through the tarmac in search of a lost monarch. In 2012, archaeologists carved a trench through the pavement and almost immediately struck human leg bones resting awkwardly in the soil. The skeleton showed intense spinal curvature, matching historical accounts of King Richard III, killed at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. Forensic analysis revealed a staggering level of violence inflicted on the king during his final moments in the mud. The skull featured 11 distinct weapon wounds, including a massive blow to the back of the head from a halberd that sliced off a large portion of his skull. Another strike from a bladed weapon penetrated through his brain casing, proving how he died. After his enemies paraded his stripped, mutilated corpse through the streets to prove his death, he was hurriedly shoved into a completely unmarked grave inside a humble friary. Centuries later, the religious buildings were entirely demolished, the land was aggressively redeveloped, and the exact location of the royal burial site was completely erased from local memory. Modern city planners eventually paved directly over the king, painting parking space lines above the conqueror. Extracting a fully authenticated medieval monarch from beneath a daily commuter space forced historians to completely reevaluate exactly how many massive historical figures are currently trapped beneath mundane modern concrete.
Sweeping a standard metal detector across a recently plowed field in central England, a man heard an aggressively loud, high-pitched signal radiating from the soil. Digging just beneath the loose topsoil in 2009, Terry Herbert pulled a heavy, dirt-caked piece of solid gold directly from the earth. He spent the next 5 days frantically pulling hundreds of gleaming artifacts from the dirt before finally realizing the sheer magnitude of the site and calling the authorities. Professional archaeologists completely locked down the farmland and extracted over 4,000 pieces of Anglo-Saxon military hardware. The collection contained absolutely no civilian coins or women's jewelry, consisting entirely of highly decorated war gear, including sword hilts, helmet fragments, and heavy gold crosses. This massive weapons cache contained nearly 12 pounds of pure gold and 3 pounds of silver, decorated with thousands of blood-red garnet stones. Historians believe the entire haul was the spoils of a brutal, unrecorded medieval war, forcefully stripped from the slaughtered bodies of defeated enemy soldiers. The victors systematically ripped the valuable gold fittings off the shattered, bloodied weapons and buried the massive treasure in a remote location, intending to return later. Whoever buried this absolute fortune never made it back, leaving a staggering, bloody king's ransom sitting just inches below the grass, while farmers unknowingly drove their heavy tractors directly over it for more than a full 1,000 years.
Number 6. Bedlam Plague Pit. Human bones packed tightly into a solid underground wall suddenly halted heavy engineering equipment deep beneath the chaotic streets of central London. Excavating the Liverpool Street Station for the new Crossrail project in 2015, crews cracked straight into the forgotten Bedlam burial ground. Beneath the concrete pavement, they exposed the densely packed skeletons of over 3,000 Londoners stacked haphazardly on top of each other. This specific site was heavily utilized during the 16th and 17th centuries, acting as a massive overflow dump for the endless victims of the bubonic plague. The sheer volume of death during these massive outbreaks forced gravediggers to completely abandon individual burials, simply tossing infected corpses into massive, open trenches. Sifting through the ancient mud, researchers found terrified victims buried with their knees drawn to their chests, indicating they were shoved hastily into holes that were completely too small. Extracting the fragile remains required archaeologists to work directly alongside massive, earth-chewing tunnel boring machines, carefully removing thousands of skulls before the heavy equipment completely pulverized them. The realization that modern commuters had been walking, shopping, and living directly over a sprawling, diseased mass grave for centuries deeply unsettled the local population. Digging into the toxic black dirt exposed the absolute desperation of a city collapsing under a horrific disease, proving the past is never entirely gone.
Number 5. Cave of the Crystals. Drilling a massive drainage tunnel nearly 1,000 feet beneath the Chihuahuan Desert, 2 unsuspecting Mexican miners violently broke through a heavy rock wall. Stepping into the dark, flooded cavity in the Nika mine in 2000, they completely froze as their headlamps illuminated a deeply alien landscape. The massive subterranean chamber was completely filled with the largest natural crystals ever discovered on the planet, with some towering pillars of gypsum reaching nearly 40 feet in length. The massive pale blades jutting across the cavern weigh up to 55 tons each, resembling the inside of a massive geode built for giants. While the massive crystalline structures look like a freezing fortress of ice, the reality is an absolute suffocating nightmare. The cave sits directly above a massive underground magma chamber, pushing the internal temperature to a blistering 136 degrees Fahrenheit with 100% humidity. Without highly specialized ice-cooled suits, the extreme atmospheric conditions will forcefully boil the fluid inside human lungs, causing completely fatal heat stroke in less than 10 minutes. The mining corporation was forced to aggressively pump millions of gallons of water out of the caverns just to allow researchers to study the deadly environment. The pumps have since been shut off, allowing the deadly superheated water to completely reclaim the cavern, permanently locking the spectacular glittering alien world entirely away from human eyes.
Number 4. Tutankhamun Tomb, KV62. Scraping away the dirt directly beneath the foundation of ancient worker huts in the Valley of the Kings, Howard Carter's team hit a hard stone step. In 1922, after years of fruitless excavation, they cleared the rubble from a staircase leading to a plaster door stamped with royal seals. Punching a tiny hole through the barrier, Carter thrust a candle into the absolute darkness and stared at an unbelievable collection of gold objects shimmering in the flickering light. The tomb of Tutankhamun survived untouched by aggressive robbers who had stripped every other known royal burial site in Egypt. The burial chamber was packed floor to ceiling with over 5,000 highly complex artifacts, including solid gold chariots, intricate alabaster vases, and fully preserved hunting weapons. Navigating the incredibly cramped, claustrophobic stone corridors required absolute precision to avoid crushing the fragile 1,000-year-old objects stacked haphazardly against the walls. The pharaoh himself was resting inside 3 nested coffins, with the innermost coffin constructed from over 240 pounds of pure, heavy, gleaming gold. Unwrapping the mummy exposed the stunning death mask, an iconic masterpiece of ancient craftsmanship that instantly became the most famous artifact on the entire planet. Opening this specific tomb unleashed a massive global obsession with Egyptian history, but the sheer volume of wealth locked in that tiny space immediately raised terrifying questions about what was buried with the pharaohs who lived much longer.
A dark, thick chemical solution was the only thing preventing a 700-year-old corpse from turning to dust when road crews in Taiwan violently struck a buried obstacle. Construction halted immediately in 2011 when archaeologists verified the thick timber belonged to a deeply buried coffin dating back directly to the Ming Dynasty. The burial site was roughly 700 years old, but when researchers carefully lifted the outer layers of the massive wooden box, they recoiled in absolute shock. The woman resting inside had completely defied the natural laws of decomposition, maintaining soft, flexible skin and perfectly preserved facial features. Her delicate silk burial clothes were incredibly vibrant and intact, maintaining their intricate, colorful embroidered patterns. The key to this preservation was a mysterious, viscous, dark brown fluid filling the innermost chamber of the heavy coffin. This strange liquid completely submerged the corpse, acting as a chemical seal that entirely blocked oxygen and aggressive bacteria from attacking the organic tissue. Extracting her from the dark fluid required intense biological safety protocols, as exposing the saturated skin to modern air could trigger rapid, catastrophic disintegration in mere minutes. The specific chemical makeup of the dark brown fluid remains a deeply complex puzzle, proving that ancient morticians possessed an incredibly advanced, highly secretive understanding of human biology that the modern world is still trying to replicate.
Chehrabad Saltmen. Commercial miners violently blasting through the walls of the Chehrabad Salt Dome in Iran noticed a human head tumbling from the fractured rock. Discovered in 1993, the severed head featured a long, flowing white beard, a gold earring, and completely preserved facial features, staring blankly at the workers. Subsequent excavations over the following years pulled 5 more naturally mummified bodies from the deep tunnels, including a teenage boy crushed by falling rocks. These individuals, now known as the Saltmen, were ancient miners who died violently in massive tunnel collapses occurring between the Achaemenid and Sasanian empires. The incredibly high density of salt inside the deep caverns acted as an aggressive sponge, rapidly pulling every single drop of moisture completely out of their bodies. Because bacteria absolutely require water to survive and multiply, the extreme dehydration entirely stopped the natural rotting process dead in its tracks. The salt preserved extreme details, keeping their leather boots completely intact, maintaining the vibrant dyes in their woolen trousers, and saving the undigested food in their stomachs. Researchers analyzing their tools and clothing discovered they were not slaves, but heavily equipped, highly skilled laborers who traveled immense distances to harvest the valuable mineral. The bodies look remarkably peaceful, almost as if they are simply sleeping, masking the absolute terror of being buried completely alive under thousands of tons of heavy, crushing stone.
Number 1. Odessa Catacombs. Expanding a modest basement in southern Ukraine, workers occasionally punch directly through their walls into an endless, suffocating void of complete darkness. Located beneath the massive port city of Odessa is the absolute largest subterranean labyrinth on the planet, an uncharted network of dark tunnels stretching over 1,500 miles. This incredible underground web was carved by unregulated stone mining in the 19th century, built by desperate laborers hacking away the soft limestone to build the city above. Because the excavation was entirely illegal and completely unmapped, there is no official blueprint for the twisting, heavily chaotic subterranean nightmare. Entire modern buildings have suddenly collapsed completely into the earth because developers had absolutely no idea a massive hollow void existed directly beneath their foundations. The catacombs are intensely dangerous, heavily littered with collapsed ceilings, highly dangerous unexploded weapons from the Second World War, and the bones of people who simply wandered too far into the darkness. Once your flashlight dies inside this sprawling maze, the complete absence of light and sound makes navigation absolutely impossible, trapping you in a silent, freezing purgatory of dead ends. The city authorities have entirely given up trying to seal the thousands of hidden entrances, leaving an endless, terrifying abyss silently waiting to swallow anyone curious enough to step out of the sunlight.
If you thought this was terrifying, you are not ready for what they found in the video on your screen. Click it right now. The truth is worse than you think.